Let's start our adventures in creating half drop repeats by creating something very simple using just one motif. So we'll create a new document. 8 by 8 is just fine as usual. And I just don't like seeing all those extra swatches over there. So we'll get rid of those and then make sure that our rulers are turned on. Command R is the keyboard shortcut for that. And let's drag over some guides to the center here at 4 inches both directions, and let's get ourselves a motif. That'll work. So I just copied and pasted that in, and here's just a handy little trick that you might find useful from time to time. My bounding box, this blue box with the little handles here, is more of a diamond and less of a square. If you go to Object Transform Reset Bounding Box, that'll actually square that up. It just kind of makes it easier to line it up where you want it and drag things to the size that you want. It can get a little annoying or tricky to try to resize things that have a funnily angled bounding box. So, okay. So if I were to create a repeat from just this, it would create a straight grid repeat using this flower design. So everything would repeat in just straight lines, straight rows, straight columns. What we want to do is turn this pattern tile, this artboard, this one motif, into a pattern that repeats in a half drop formation. So how we'll do that is to move this over so it's just on the left side of the artboard. And normally what we would do is copy this over in a straight repeat from the left to the right so it's in exactly the same spot. So we would go horizontally 8, vertically 0. That's what we would normally do. In a half drop repeat, what we want to do is move the motif from the left side to the right side, but up half a step and down half a step. So half of 8 is 4. So we'll copy that. And now we are starting to get somewhere. So everything needs to be repeated from the left to the right, half a step down and half a step up. Everything on the top and the bottom still need to repeat straight up and down the way we normally do. So you can see now that I moved this from left to right in that half step, it's now intersecting the bottom edge, which means I need to also intersect it on the top edge at exactly the same spot. So we'll do that by going horizontal 0, no movement left or right, and then to move up is a negative number, so we'll go all the way up, -8. And voila, that is essentially our half drop pattern tile. So to make this work, let's make our blank magic square and we will put it in the back. And the way that we normally do things, we would, one way, my preferred way, I should say, is to select everything, click, hold, and drag over to the swatches palette. With a half drop repeat or a brick repeat, that will not work. That only works with a straight repeat. So let me show you what happens. Illustrator doesn't know to treat this as a half drop repeat, to repeat it in that formation. So it does this funky thing. It's just repeating our pattern tile as a straight repeat. So the way around that is to select everything, go to Object, Pattern, Make, and then you'll see this funky thing happens. It looks totally weird. Don't get scared. This tile type, so the pattern options palette will automatically pop up. If you click this tile type drop down, there are a few different options, and if you choose brick by column, that's the same thing as a half drop, exactly the same. And you'll see now it's telling Illustrator to repeat it in that formation. And you can just go ahead and click done at the top. It goes back to exactly the way you designed it, and you have this new beautiful swatch over here. So let's test that out. So there's the one that we made before, the one that didn't work by dragging it in. And here is the new one. Illustrator magically knows to just repeat it in that formation. automatically. So that is pretty handy. CS6 and all the most recent versions of the Creative Cloud Illustrator all work this way. Earlier versions of Illustrator, like CS5, CS4, anything earlier than that, you do not have this option for Illustrator to know to lay out your half drop patterns in this formation, so you have to actually lay things out manually. Let me delete that. So the way that you would do that is you don't actually create a swatch. This can be a useful exercise just so you can visually see how your pattern is laid out. If you're still maybe a little bit confused about how half drops actually work and fit together, you don't need to make the blank magic square. What you do need to do is make a clipping mask. So to do that, you want a blank square in the very front rather than the very back. So I just moved that to the front, select everything, go to Object, Clipping Mask, Make, or Command 7 is that keyboard shortcut. And what I would do if I, for example, wanted to save a larger swath of this pattern rather than just this one, kind of close in pattern tile, would be to copy this, so Command C, or Edit, Copy. I'm going to open a new document, Command N. Let's make it, let's say 20 by 20. And we'll paste, Command V. And we know that this is 8 by 8 inches, so we'll just place it in the top corner there. And we'll simply start copying it down. So everything vertically in those columns needs to be lined up exactly straight, so we'll just move that down 8, horizontally 0. We'll do the same thing again to finish out that square. Then we'll select everything. This is where things get a little fancy with a half drop. So we'll double click there. And now we'll be going horizontally 8 to move it over to that next column. But we want to move everything up a half step, so 4. And to move things up is a negative number, so -4. Copy. And you can see now everything is being placed exactly where we want it. So we'll select those. We'll do the same thing. So we're going to go horizontally 8. And now we'll move things down. So you can see it just kind of goes up, down, up, down. So now since we're moving down, that's a positive number, and we'll copy. And that's that. So I could save this as an Illustrator file. That's fine. You can also export. Say you wanted to save a JPEG to put on Instagram or something like that. You can just export right from the file menu here. Export as JPEG and then save it to wherever, and it'll save only the artboard and not these extra little bits and pieces that are on the outside. And then you'll have a larger swath of your half drop pattern that you've laid out manually. So that is another way to do it if you are not currently using the most recent, the most up-to-date version of Illustrator. And it can also, I highly recommend just trying that anyway, just to give you a better sense of how things are put together in a half drop repeat. It'll really help you as we move into the next video, where we'll be putting together the same kind of repeat but with more than one motif happening. So things can get slightly chaotic and confusing if you're not quite sure how it actually works. So try that out, and I'll see you in the next video.